One of the things I enjoy most in a story is when it comes with a new perspective to a thing I already know. It's a thing I've talked about before at length in different essays, and I'm here to do it again today because today I want to return to the world of Halo for a little bit. Specifically, I want to remember Reach. Reach was released in 2010, and it was Bungie's swan song in the Halo universe before the series would be handed off to 343. As such, it had some pretty big shoes to step into as an experience, and I like to think that it absolutely succeeded. And to help explain why, I think we need to establish what it was, really what it is, in relation to the rest of Bungie's Halo catalog. You see, in Halo 1, 2, and 3, you play as the Master Chief, Sierra 117, John, who is, by no coincidence, not just a Spartan, but perhaps the best of the Spartans, especially if you're including his actions in the events of the books in the extended canon. There is something special about John, it would seem, something that escapes measure, something that eludes quantification, that puts him a step above every other Spartan, and even more so above the standard member of the UNSC, the combined military forces of Earth and all her colonies. And this isn't just me fanboying over the character. Even Cortana, the most important AI that the UNSC has ever devised in the beginning lines of Halo 3, says that she chose John specifically over any other Spartan because he has something they don't. You know the line. And because John is such an incredible force, we don't really see him lose all that often. And because he's the player character, we certainly don't see him die, at least not in canon. And in truth, even in the extended canon, looking at Spartans that are not John, the death of a Spartan is a rare event. So when you load into Reach, and you spend a bit of time customizing your Spartan, your surrogate into this world, and then the opening shot is your shattered and broken helmet, with the second shot being you putting an unmarred version of that helmet on, you should be able to pick up instantly that this game is going to be different. You're a Spartan, oh yes, but you're not getting out of this one alive. And as we're introduced to Noble Team, 5 other Spartans, none of whom we as the player have ever heard of before, it's only natural, I think, to wonder, does anyone make it out of this alive? The death of the Spartan is a deeply inherent theme to Reach. Exiting the building, Carter, Noble 1, will make a mention that you, as the new Noble 6, are stepping into shoes that the rest of the squad would rather leave unfilled. This means that you're not here because Noble Team expanded or got approved for additional members, you're here because Noble 6, at least as this squad knew them, is dead. And this isn't really a super hidden thing. One of the trailers for the game actually shows us the event where Noble 6 goes missing in action. But knowing that information so early in the game, knowing that 2 Spartans are a combination of either dead or will be dead before credits roll, knowing that the death of the Spartan is a core aspect of this game, and that the other named characters are ones that I had never heard of in the game set chronologically after this one, it all turns Reach into this waiting game. Every level comes with tension and anxiety as a small, subtle built-in factor. Because there's 6 Spartans here. What could possibly take on 6 Spartans? But at the same time, Reach has already established that the death of a Spartan is not an if, but a win, and I want to understand what that means. The first mission of the game starts with Noble Team responding to an offline relay outpost. Planetary Command has already sent a standard issue trooper team to resolve the issue, citing the most likely culprit as the local rebellious militias, but there's no clear reason why the militia would want to take down communication networks, and more than that, the trooper team they sent recently went silent. High Command advises Local Command, one Colonel Holland, to just send another trooper team, stating that a full Spartan deployment for a downed relay outpost and some rebels is a gross misuse of valuable resources. But Holland has his own concerns about that plan, and so he sends Noble Team anyways. And all the better for it, because Rebels didn't do this. The Covenant did. If you're just joining us for this story with no prior knowledge of the Halo series, hi, thanks for coming along. The Covenant is an alliance of alien races that, for reasons not overly important to this particular story, don't really care much for humanity, and honestly, would much rather prefer if we were all dead. They're also a faction with a clear technological lead, making it rather easy for them to pursue that interest. There is a large, ever-growing list of planets and colonies lost to the Covenant as humanity is pushed harder and harder. Now, Reach is one of our most important planets, not just for its beautiful natural landscapes or its dense civilian populations, but also because it houses some of the UNSC's most valuable military assets. Losing Reach would be a nearly unparalleled blow, but the Covenant don't really have a history of half measures. If they're here on Reach, it's bad and it's only going to get worse. Despite that, every member of Noble Team makes it out alive and with some recovered intelligence in hand at the end of the first mission. The second mission sees Noble Team responding to a Covenant siege of Sword Base, a valuable installation operated by the Office of Naval Intelligence. Oni, like the Covenant themselves, are a topic a bit too broad to explain easily in a video like this, so just think of them as the UNSC's equivalent of the Space CIA. They're always up to something, and it's always some kind of secret. That does mean, however, that losing an Oni facility to the Covenant is kind of out of the question, so we can help clear the siege both on the ground and in the air by clearing out the base itself and the surrounding outposts and getting local anti-air back online. With the siege largely broken, the Covenant corvette that's been at the helm of the Covenant forces will try to retreat, but it won't get far. With Sword Base cleared, Noble Team gets a call to meet with one Dr. Halsey, who is, again, too big a figure to explain easily. She's essentially the mother of the Spartan program, but she still finds plenty of time to dabble in other affairs as well, and as it turns out, that includes the intelligence Noble Team found at the attacked relay outpost. It is potentially, as Halsey tells us, a latchkey discovery, something that might finally give humanity a much-needed edge against the Covenant in this war, but we won't know for a while, and in the interim, we'll be deployed back into the field. Mission 3 sees us as 6 and June as Noble 3 on a moonlight stroll of sorts, just minus the romance and plus the high-velocity armor-piercing sniper rounds. The Covenant have been getting a little too comfortable with their positions here on Reach, and it's Noble's job to figure out why. In doing so, we'll team up with some of the local militia who stuck around despite planetary evacuation orders because they didn't like the idea of relying on someone else to defend their home, making this a rare civilian Spartan-style team-up level, which you gotta know I love. What I don't love is that the Covenant are getting comfortable because they've essentially moved in. There's an entire ground army already deployed using special signal blocker towers to hide their presence. All ground forces currently available on Reach are being redeployed to this area as a response, which means tomorrow is going to be a very busy day. Mission 4 sees two split objectives. The bulk of Reach's armies and UNSC deployments are meeting the landed Covenant forces head-on, but they won't be able to call in any valuable air support due to Covenant anti-air positions along the tall side of the canyon, which means it's Noble's job to open up the skies. Doing so will let the heavy guns enter the fight, and we can clear out the Covenant landing site before more bad guys are able to make landfall. If you have the chance, maybe also consider dropping the shields around one of the big spires so that we can use some MAC rounds in atmosphere.
In atmosphere?
Oh yes, George, in atmosphere. Between the Corvette and the Spire, it really starts to feel like humanity might have a real shot at pushing the Covenant off of Reach. That is, of course, until right about now. A Covenant supercarrier has been cloaked above the planet, and all we really accomplished this day was getting it to show its hand. And this, for me, is when the dread starts to set in. We haven't lost any Spartans all the way through Mission 4, which is almost halfway through the story. And up to this point, you might have been able to convince yourself that maybe, just maybe, it might stay that way. But not anymore. Not with Mission 5. With the supercarrier revealed, things have changed. The majority of the UNSC space fleets are currently on their way to Reach, with an estimated arrival time of 48 hours, but with that carrier in orbit, Reach might not even last one. So the plan is simple. To travel faster than light speed, UNSC ships are equipped with a slip-space drive. Again, too complicated to explain in this video, but as we learned from a previous accident, if you break a slip-space drive in just the right way, when you turn it on, rather than traveling to a different part of the galaxy, you'll instead explode violently, and then travel to somewhere else in the galaxy. So, we're going to load a slightly malfunctioning slip-space drive onto a small spaceship, infiltrate a smaller Covenant corvette, and when that corvette goes to refuel with a supercarrier, we'll remotely activate the faulty drive. I said the plan was simple, I didn't say it was good. But we can either try it and possibly lose Reach, or don't try it and definitely lose Reach. One of Oni's secrets they keep on Reach is the classified Saber program, a space fighter with some serious potential. And even if the models are still in the prototype and test phase, they can hold their own in a fight. So us being ourselves, and George, Noble 5, head up into orbit to lead a strike and infiltration mission against the local corvette, and we're able to jam their signals just long enough to clear their defenses, sneak on board and kill the bridge crew, and automate a refueling command as George preps the modified drive. We return to the hangar to help George clear a Covenant response, but there's a problem. In the firefight, the drive was damaged, and the remote detonation unit for it is fried. Here it finally is. Our first Spartan death. And in a sense, it was always going to be George. You see, every member of Noble Team is pretty well defined and developed in their personalities, and I think it's important to understand them if we're fully going to feel the weight of their loss. In the simplest description, George is kind. He's gentle despite his size, and there's no doubt that he feels a genuine love for Reach and its people, and the game makes sure we know that. He's the only one that speaks the local language, and we always see him be the one to work with civilians when they're present. He mourns a daughter's lost father alongside her, even if she doesn't believe him. And when the moment comes for George to prove his love to Reach, it's not even a matter of hesitation. It's a matter of caring for Reach like Reach has cared for him. To him, it's a matter of repaying the favor. He doesn't really give you a choice in the matter. He is, after all, the team big guy. A Spartan can survive a fall from orbit. They cannot survive a faulty slipspace drive. We watch on as the blast rips the supercarrier apart, split into 3 sections. 2 that will fall and burn up an atmospheric entry, and 1 that will be sent far away, carrying with it whatever is left of George. We get an alert that a slipspace rupture has been detected, and everything goes quiet. Until suddenly, a second alert, and a third, and a fourth, again and again, until the only thing we can hear is slipspace rupture detected, as more and more Covenant carriers arrive to Reach. George gave his life thinking he was going to save Reach, but Reach was never going to be saved. It was always going to be lost, and though this story that I'm telling you is about the death of the Spartan, this game is about the recognition of the inevitability of that loss, and most importantly, what can be done before it's lost. By the time we land and recover, making our way to the city of New Alexandria for Mission 6, the Covenant have already been long at work doing what they do best, and as such, this level is largely about moving from one skirmish to the next, with no solid contact from Holland or the rest of Noble. Just one Spartan doing what they can wherever they can do it. Honestly, I could probably do an entire essay on this level alone, but that's not what we're here for. The final skirmish of the level takes us to the beachfront, where civilian evac transports are pinned between ground forces breaking down their doors and Covenant anti-air installations daring them to take off. You cannot save Reach. You cannot save New Alexandria. But you can save these people. We're finally able to make contact with Noble Team again at the end of the level, but mourning George will have to wait. Evacuating whatever can be saved from New Alexandria will go all night, taking us to Mission 7. And by the time night finally rolls around, there's not even much of New Alexandria left. This isn't really about saving the city, it's mostly about pulling out whatever's left. Pretty much the entire mission revolves around you responding to distress calls and clearing out Covenant signal jammers to make sure as many of those distress calls as possible are able to be picked up by friendly UNSC forces still in the area. The mission ends with a small crescendo, and we return to Noble Team. The mood is not great. The squad is in pretty deep with one of those core themes that embodies the Halo games, at least these early Bungie ones. Sacrifice and loss are pretty big themes in Halo, and they come with the notion that wins are rare, losses are common, but if we're lucky, we can maybe lose on our own terms. The squad receives a patchy call from our old friend Holland, but right as Carter picks up, June calls out that the Covenant forces have suddenly started a fast retreat, and the Covenant never retreat for no reason. Suddenly, contact with Holland is lost. Kat calls out a radiation flare, one growing stronger by the second until suddenly, it hits. The Covenant are glassing whatever is left of New Alexandria. Kat's able to pinpoint a bunker nearby that should be able to withstand the assault, but we have to move quick. Carter, Emil, and June make it out of their lift, and Kat and Six are just a second behind. But that's enough, though. Just via its nature, the death of the Spartan is impactful, regardless of why or how it happens. But because Reach is a good game, each death also means something specific to itself and adds on to what's come before it. The death of George implies that the death of the Spartan is a noble thing, it is selfless, it is a loss on their own term, and one that they're willing to make. It's supposed to mean something, even if it doesn't. The death of Kat grounds the concept, though. The death of the Spartan can be a noble thing, but it can also be meaningless. Kat's death is devastating, and rewatching the footage you can pinpoint all sorts of small lead-up elements. She stumbles when the blast hits, and Six stops to help her. That puts them a half second behind the other 3. The 2 have to take their own elevator down, and because Kat is nervous about her first glassing, she misses the button on the first attempt to start the lift, and that's another half second behind. And if you're an elite headhunter who's been stalking Noble Team through the ruins of the city since you encountered them at the relay outpost in the first level, that 1 second is enough. But the death of Kat is even more tragic in a way you might miss if you don't play with subtitles. Because as Six drags Kat's body into the bunker, you might catch a line or two spoken by civilians. Spartans in Halo have a difficult history because their original purpose was to quell human rebellions and militia groups. But with the Covenant War in full effect, they've been entirely repurposed and heavily propagandized as humanity's greatest tool and fighting force. So much so to the point that official UNSC records have never recorded a Spartan as killed in action. They're always recorded as missing or wounded, regardless of the truth. I can't help but think that to the common man, Spartans represent the last flickering bit of hope, an immortal bastion holding the flame bright against the encroaching night. But what happens to that belief, that hope, as you sit in a bunker listening to the Covenant destroy your home, and the corpse of a Spartan sits beside you? Noble is a 4-person team now, but that doesn't really mean anything gets to change. Some strings have been pulled in the background, and the remaining Spartans are sent back to Swordbase to destroy any of Halsey's remaining data, but there's a twist. Halsey is still there, and before her intelligence can be wiped, there is one singular bit that needs to be saved. The data that Noble recovered from the relay outpost was, in fact, a latchkey discovery with the potential to change the fate of humanity in this war. Reach is lost. All that matters now is getting this data off-planet, and there's only one surviving evac site left on this continent. June leaves with Halsey to keep her safe, and Carter, Emil, and Six make their own way to the Azad shipyard, where the UNSC ship Pillar of Autumn awaits the package. It's not looking good, though. The Covenant know that the options for planetary exfil are now few and far between, and it's easy to start locking them down, which means that by the time we even get close, we've already been hit hard. Anytime a person is bleeding from the nose, eyes, mouth, or ears as a result of physical trauma, that's usually not a good sign. The fact that Carter is bleeding from all 4 as he pilots the Pelican is definitely a bad sign. Carter is going to die in this level, and the game makes it clear from the start. With Covenant Air Force in hot pursuit, Carter calls an audible. Emil and Six will jump, taking the package on foot, and Carter will draw away their pursuers for as long as possible, and our journey towards Azad will give us one of my favorite bits from Reach, as you and Emil tear through the fields and canyons on a mongoose. The most important mission of the game done atop the smallest, most insignificant vehicle, and all the while massive Covenant armor and drop pods crash around you. There's no way to win this fight, but if you do everything right, you might be able to lose on your own terms. And that is what Carter is going to do, because when a Scarab manages to pin Emil and Six in a narrow crevice, there's only one real solution. The Pelican is a transport vehicle. It doesn't really have any weapons capable of combating the heaviest armored unit the Covenant can drop on us, but to Carter, a Spartan already dying, it does have the mass. I've talked at length before in my video on ODST that Halo is pretty well defined by losses we accept on our own terms. Carter was always going to die in this level. According to Dot, Noble's friendly AI, most evac convoys heading for Azad never even see the shipyard before they're shot down. The fact that Carter got us this close is a miracle, and here, he gets to do one final thing to support and care for the people he's led and relied on. He gets to lose on his own terms. Not with the certainty that he's just saved Reach, not with the sudden, unpredictable ending of an assassination, but doing so instead with the full knowledge that he's already on his way out, that this won't save the day, but it might buy you another minute, and all you have to do is make that count. Azad is under siege when you get there, and by working with the remaining trooper teams on the ground, you can push through to the Pillar of Autumn's dry dock. There's a local MAC gun that's been taken offline, and while Emil goes to clear the gun and return it to working order, it's your job to clear a landing zone. The captain of the Autumn, one Captain Keys, is personally coming in to obtain the package. But we'll need to clear the area first, giving us our final firefight as a fire team, or at least whatever remains of our fire team. We clear the ground, and Emil clears the sky, and with Keys inbound, Emil sends us on our way. We'll escort the package to the Autumn, and he'll keep our path open. It's a final goodbye, and it almost might have worked, had it not been for a single Phantom that snuck in underneath the MAC gun's angle. It blasts one Pelican, but moves past the second, almost as if it's not interested in the package or the evac. No, this Phantom is far more interested in the MAC gun and Emil specifically, because the elites that drop are part of the same team that killed Kat. This same team that's been stalking Noble all across Reach since we met them at the relay in the first level. Emil gets one, the second gets Emil, but it doesn't get to enjoy the win for long. Emil's death is one that comes with a handful of layers because he'd already accepted that he was going to stay behind. He was never going to leave Reach, and he knew that. And even when he's jumped by the elite that kills him, with his final words he cries out that he's ready and asks the elite, "How about you?" One of the fun things about working in content analysis like I get to do here is learning to understand how I understand that content, and for me, I found that it involves a non-insignificant amount of listening to what other people think and how they feel about something. Listening to other people's perspective helps me place my own, and that can range from essays and documentaries made by people I hold in high regard and as inspiration, but it can also be found in small, entirely unexpected places. It had been a few years since I sat down to play Reach on my own, so I watched a lot of the cutscenes for this game before going and recording my own footage just to make sure that there were things I'd want to talk about, and I saw this as one of the comments on a video of Emil's final moments, and it presents the notion that Emil's final words are not rhetorical towards the elite, but are genuine towards you. With the package secured from Halsey, the plan was always that you would walk. You would be the one to leave Reach here in this final moment, and that Emil would stay behind. But the plans changed, and now Emil asks you, genuinely, if you're ready to stay behind too. If you're ready to lose on your own terms. If you're ready to die. And the answer is yes, because the very first thing the game told us is that we would have to be. With 6 on the gun, there's just enough time for the Autumn to slip away, conduct a blind jump, and flee Reach. And as we watch that story begin, it's time for our own to end. We've lost on our own terms, and that's as big a win as we're gonna get here. The final objective is survive, as long as you can. Take as many with you as possible, and don't go quiet into that long night. You will die. You've known that from the start. But that's not where this story ends, because you might already know that the package you were given by Halsey was the AI Cortana, who, alongside John, would push back against the Covenant, bring them to the edge, and shatter their resolve. John and Cortana would go on to save humanity, but it would be the deaths of Noble Team that would make that possible.